afternoon to good evening kind of a time. My name is Ruchi. I am the director of the Symbiosis Institute of Media and Communication, and it is a pleasure to be a part of IHE in this particular way. It has been a lovely discourse over the last two and a half days, like precisely, and I think multiple conversations. But what a pleasure to be hosting a session which mainstreams the voices of faculty and students who have been a part of these collaborations, who have been on the field, who have been actual recipients, beneficiaries, as well as facilitators and catalysts in this whole collaborative ecology that the whole conference has been discussing over the 2.5 days that have passed. Very enriching discussions, I think equally exciting questions, but what this session particularly promises is equally exciting conversations when students and teachers come together. So it is my honor, and I am delighted to welcome you all, which is the last session of the conference, and we have it's not a very long session, so I will keep the introductions and the overview of the session a little shorter, but just to welcome you all to this last session, which is titled Strengthening Bridges Through Student Faculty Engagements. This session will be chaired by Professor Dr. Bhama Venkataramani, who is the Dean Academics and Administration at Symbiosis International University. Before I hand over the proceedings to Bhama ma'am, I will take this opportunity to introduce the panelists for the session, which I see most of them have joined us already on the session. But before I introduce all the panelists, let me give you a very brief introduction of Dr. Bhama. Dr. Bhama, who is the Dean Academics and Administration at Symbiosis International University, contributes to framing policies and monitoring outcomes desired and articulated by the university overall. Dr. Bhama very, interestingly holds a PhD in finance from the University of Pune. She has been into teaching and academic administration for over 3 decades now. While the other things that Dr. Bhama does are something that we at Symbiosis are extremely aware of, but just to kind of help you understand, she traverses this very interesting boundary between academics and administration very seamlessly, if I can put it in those words. But very interestingly, to contextualize her contribution to the whole scenario of internationalization of higher education, Dr. Bhama has represented SIU in an Erasmus Plus funded project, which focused on quality management in higher education institutes in India. And she was also nominated by Obrial Global to interact with the partners of the Vita Global Project Modularization of Curriculum to promote flexibility and internationalization. Dr. Bhama would be chairing the session and taking the proceedings forward. But I would like to also introduce very briefly the other panelists on the sessions. I would first introduce the faculty, the professors. And the first person I'd like to introduce is Professor Priyanka Upadhyay, who is the chairholder, UNESCO Chair for Peace and Intercultural Understanding at Banaras Hindu University. Professor Upadhyay, it is my privilege to welcome you. He has over 4 decades of experience in teaching and leadership positions, and his most remarkable achievement has been this contribution to envision and nurture the Malviya Center for Peace Research, where he currently holds the UNESCO Chair for Peace and Intercultural Understanding, and he serves on the UNESCO Committee of Interreligious Dialogue and Intercultural Understanding. He also has multiple fellowships to his name. Because of the paucity of time, I would not list all the fellowships because the list is really, really prolific and long. But sir, it is a pleasure to have someone like you with so many fellowships, with the experience of so many publications in journals, from books ranging from Oxford University Press to Manchester University Press to Sage to Rutledge, and then his forthcoming volume, which is on interreligious dialogue, good practices, challenges, and future directions, which is soon to be published by UNESCO this year. I think his contribution to this panel is something that we are looking forward to. I welcome you on behalf of Symbiosis, sir. Our next panelist is Dr. Rajesh Tandon, who is the co-founder and president of Participatory Research in Asia. He is an internationally acclaimed leader and practitioner of participatory research and development, and is the founder president of this organization, which is Participatory Research in Asia, which is a global center for participatory research and training. He's also the co-chair of the UNESCO Chair in Community-Based Research and Social Responsibility in Higher Education. Sir has been an alumnus of IIT Kanpur, IIM Kolkata, and also has a PhD in management from Case Western Reserve University, USA. Nehru Literacy Award for his distinguished work on gender issues, and this is something that I specifically wanted to mention. The government of India has also honored him with the prestigious award in social justice, and the University of Victoria, Canada had awarded Dr. Tandon the degree of law in June 2008, and he's the first Indian to be inducted to the International Adult and Continuing Education Hall of Fame. He's also the first Indian scholar to be inducted in the Academy of Engagement Scholarship. Welcome to Symbiosis. I would now like to introduce our next panelist, Dr. Madhu Chitkara, who is the Pro-Chancellor of Chitkara University, India. Dr. Madhu Chitkara is a teacher by heart, and education is something that she describes as the mission of her life. She's currently holding the position of Pro-Chancellor of Chitkara University campuses and has an overall experience of over 4 decades. She has been the recipient of several awards by the state government, by the national government, pertaining primarily to teaching and also in the spaces of entrepreneurship. We welcome you to this panel and look forward to hearing you, Dr. Chitkara. Now I would like to introduce the 3 students who are going to be talking about their experiences on this panel. We have Anirudh Inamdar from the Manipal University. Anirudh is currently an Erasmus Plus student at the School of Educational Sciences at the Tallinn University in Estonia. He has a specialization in education research, and he's currently pursuing his final year of MA in European Studies from the Manipal Academy of Higher Education. He's very interested in subjects on economics of education, education policy, higher education governance and research, and he's also worked on the qualification framework for harmonization in higher education during his internship at a public policy center. A few publications to his credit already. He's also working on the topic of publication pressure among Indian academics, which is also a topic of his master's thesis. We also have amongst us Aisha John, who is a student of the Symbiosis School of Liberal Arts at Symbiosis International University. She's a 4th year liberal arts student with a major in psychology, and she's doing her double minors in economics and international relations. She's hoping to pursue a career in psychology, and she wants to integrate mental health resources and increase their accessibility in the social sector in India. Looking forward to hearing you, Aisha. And finally, we also have somebody from Argentina with us, and that is Miss Kiara Prajeon. Kiara is an engineering student. She is doing her engineering in natural renewable sources at the University of National DQ in Mendoza, Argentina. And very interestingly, Kiara has had her first international experience with a Fulbright scholarship that she got. I think we have a very, very exciting and lineup here, and really looking forward to this extremely participative panel, which will close this conference on a high note today. On that note, and on behalf of the Symbiosis International Deemed University and everyone here, I welcome you to this session, and I hand over the proceedings to Dr. Bhama to take the discussion forward.
Thank you so much, Ruchi. Thank you very much. It is indeed a pleasure to be chairing this session where we have such accomplished panelists. Greetings of the day to all present here, to our panelists, and to all the ladies and gentlemen present here. I do believe that this conversation will be one that you will all be able to relate to. Many of you being faculty and students, you will all be able to relate to this session. You will find many answers to some of the questions that you've asked yourself or discussed with your friends or colleagues. So let's go on with the session. This track is about strengthening bridges through student-faculty engagements. Strengthening bridges between universities within the region, between universities across the region, with the industry and the local community, all of which will add to the quality of learning process and the internationalization of higher education. Let me start with my experience as an Erasmus Plus, my experience with an Erasmus Plus project in which SIU was a partner. Professor Bharati, Swati, and I represented SIU in this project. It was a capacity building project called IQAMBI, Enhancing Quality Assurance Management and Benchmarking Strategies in Indian Universities. So, who were the partners here? It was led by the University of Barcelona. Dr. Nicolas Petrici, who was one of our panelists yesterday, he was the project leader for this project. And the University of Barcelona had partnered with ANECA, which is the counterpart of NAC in Spain. And then we had the University of Roma, La Sapienza from Italy. We also had the KTH from Sweden. We had KTH from Sweden. We had the University of Nicosia from Cyprus. And of course, the University of Montpellier from France. From India, it was led by NAC. And the other universities from India were Jadavpur University, the IIT Madras, Shivaji University, University of Mysore, Mangalore University, and one college affiliated to Bangalore called the EduLink, Asia Institute of Gaming and Animation. So what did we do over the last, this project lasted for about 3 years, and what did we do over the last 3 years? So we participated in a whole range of activities. We conducted 2 surveys, pan-India surveys, on quality practices on higher education in India and data management practices on higher education in India. We attended training programs in Stockholm, Madrid, Barcelona, Valencia, and at IIT Madras. We hosted 2 conferences, quality management conferences at SIU. We developed a toolkit, a quality management and benchmarking toolkit, which was tailored to meet the requirements of each of the Indian universities. So, Symbiosis, we created a toolkit that would suit our requirements. We interacted with faculty and administrators of HEIs of other universities in India and abroad. What was the outcome of all of this? There was, of course, immense learning from each other. Even before this project had commenced, SIU for a long time had been wanting to set up its own quality management and benchmarking department. We wanted to set our own quality standards and not look at quality as something that we'll have to react to, maybe what NAC wants or maybe what NIRF wants. We wanted to set our own standards, benchmark. And this project was, very timely. We had already created a framework to evaluate performances of our institutions called the Outcome Metrics and Performance Indicators, the OMPI we call it. And this OMPI was created to suit our requirements, to measure indicators that were important to us. Now, with this exposure and learnings from the project, we established a quality management and benchmarking department. And we also built on this OMPI that we had already created to make it more robust. We now have an advisory board for the QMB, which has experts from India and abroad. And we very recently articulated our quality policy. In short, the IQAMBI experience and the people we met helped us strengthen the quality ecosystem at SIU. That was not all. Our collaborations increased. We have initiated or forged further collaborations with KTH Sweden, with Upadhyay Global, and even with and even within the country, we have already initiated collaborations with Jadavpur University, Mangalore University, Mysore University, where our computer science department and our Institute of Technology, the faculty from these 2 institutes are working very closely with the other universities here. We have established the India chair of the Global Observatory, the India chapter, and Dr. Vidya is the first chair of this chapter. Along with Global Observatory, the Upadhyay Global Observatory, we've been able to strengthen our relationship with several regional associations. So our collaborations have definitely increased and have become more robust. At a personal level also, I benefited much more, got much more from this experience than I ever thought I would. I visited several universities and interacted with administrators, faculty, and non-teaching staff. Got more comfortable working in a multicultural setup, explored more cuisines, though there were very limited options for vegetarians. And above all, I made a lot of friends, both within and outside the country. Today, I know that they are all just an email or a WhatsApp away, should I ever need their support or guidance. I'm sure that other faculty who have participated in such projects will have very similar experiences to share, whether they have participated in COIL, for example, or students who have participated or benefited out of such programs, projects of UKV, Erasmus, Fulbright, or such others. There is really no doubt that such international experiences are very enriching academically and culturally. But it is important to ponder on what proportion of our students or teachers the world over are really getting these opportunities. Fortunately, internationalization at home is often recommended as an alternative. Supporting internationalization at home, what Jane Knight says is internationalization is all about integrating international, intercultural, or global dimensions into the purpose, functions, and delivery of post secondary education. So, what we have all arrived at is a consensus where we believe that internationalization of higher education is really necessary. The question, there are other questions revolving internationalization, one of which is, does internationalization of higher education really mean a westernized, largely Anglo-Saxon and predominantly English-speaking paradigm? Jones and Hans David very clearly disagree and observe that internationalization need not mean westernization. But there is another school of thought, another group, which have taken the conversation to a different level, to the next level, and they strongly advocate decolonization of internationalization. Decolonization of internationalization of the curricula. The proponents highlight that there is a need to decenter hegemonic Western knowledge and recenter indigenous knowledge systems. Of course, this paper, Jansen in this paper talks about Africa specifically, but it is applicable to other colonized countries also. So, to take us through the maze of these discussions, through the imperatives of education for global citizenship, share their lived experiences with us, and to help us understand how engagement between the local and the global is also an imperative in the process of internationalization of higher education, we have with us an esteemed panel of accomplished faculty and students. Dear panelists, we are very happy to have you all amidst us today. We will have this discussion over 2 rounds. The first round will be for about 5 minutes, and the second round will be for about 3 minutes. Let me start with Professor Upadhyay. Professor, yesterday in one of our sessions, our Chancellor, Dr. S.B. Muzumdar, spoke about the need for internationalization of education, the need for education to open minds, open one's mind, an education that helps us understand and accept diversity, appreciates the need for eventually bringing out the goodness in people, and not just honing skills and imparting knowledge. He mentioned that education must be such that it makes more and more people believe in the concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Can you share your thoughts on what you think are the imperatives of education for global citizenship?
First of all, thank you, Professor, for giving us a very good preface to the imperative of internationalization of education. There is so much to share, and there is still so much to learn. We in India, although we have had a long lineage, a long tradition of global education, at least the aspirations were there, starting with Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam to what we have today, to the Gandhian precept of keep your windows open. But let me begin with the precept, the understanding that it's very important for us to believe that education is transformation. And it is transformation not only in terms of the economic and the job related issues, but also in terms of learning other cultures and also empowering sections of the society that deserve to be attended. In particular, I would very quickly, the time is short. If you look at the Sustainable Development Goals, the 17 goals, education is a standalone goal. Not only it's a standalone, it's a connected goal. I mean, these 17 points tell us that education relates to practically everything, to peace, to the gender situation, to climate change, and so on and so forth. But then how do we go about unless we have a global perspective? Because what is happening is that despite global connectivity, there is a rise of this myopic kind of parochialism also. I mean, these days I hear a lot about Indian knowledge system. It's a great idea, grand idea, nothing against it. But this Indian knowledge system must also find its meaning vis-a-vis other cultural attributes. Like, for example, Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam goes well with the idea of Ubuntu. But how to go about it? I think having served a major university for almost 40 years, and the last year, especially as the senior consultant of international collaboration, my sense is that we have to develop very strongly in areas of humanities and social sciences, which is something lacking. I mean, the only way in the international students the interaction takes place is through an age-old Wisconsin program. In Banaras, particularly, I would say that we have had this grand tradition of informal kind of exchange programs like the college here in India by Wisconsin that ran very successfully for almost 30 years, but now it's gone because of all kind of situations, and it's a different kind of narrative to talk about. So these informal programs are there. Universities are trying hard to bring in students, but the challenge is how do we attract them? I mean, in case of, I'll tell you the example that the UNESCO chair that we have at Banaras in the university, and especially a Center for Peace Research, we have had several MOUs with several lead universities, including in North America and Europe. And mostly their students and faculty will come here, but there'll be no funding available for our students to go there unless we go in for fellowships like Linnaeus Palme or Erasmus, and our students benefit a lot. I would say, and my own experience is, that interaction with foreign students and faculty really, really enlightens us in terms of a more open kind of mindset, which is so very necessary for the development of personality. So, as I said, there is so much to say, so much to learn, but 5 minutes is 5 minutes. So, let me stop here and congratulate you and also Symbiosis for taking up these ideas relentlessly. I remember just, I think, a month back or even less than a month back, I was asked to give a lecture at Symbiosis, of course, online, on Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. I mean, the challenge is how do we put it in practice? How do we make India a destination for all those people who are, who love this global education? And by the way, I'm very happy that Dr. Rajesh Tandon is here. The two of us together were part of a UGC very dedicated program on developing global citizenship education. I think this is a program that opens a window to all public and private university, and I look forward to more conversations about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Upadhyay. I completely agree with you. With 5 minutes, you can probably not even scratch the surface. I understand, but at least the thoughts that you shared with us, the need to find ways to attract students, to have such international programs which open mindsets, and and a whole host of things that NEP is now talking about. You spoke about social sciences, having to have more programs in humanities and social sciences. Yes, NEP is now talking about it. Again, the question is, how are we going to implement it, and how are we going to make it attractive to our students? I mean, the general impression is always, programs that humanities and social sciences was never seen too much as something that created employability options. But now I think that situation is changing with liberal arts getting more prominence. Thank you so much. We will come back to you with the second question. I will now go on to Dr. Rajesh Tandon. Dr. Tandon, your brainchild, participatory research, is a methodology that values the learnings from experiences under the mentorship of practitioners. You have undertaken a number of initiatives to promote engagement of institutions of higher education with civil society and local communities to foster knowledge generation and mutual learning. It'll be interesting to hear your thoughts on how one could bring in the flavor of internationalization in projects that may be situated in local contexts. We'd love to hear your thoughts, Dr. Tandon.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much, Dr. Venkatramani and colleagues, and thank you, Priyanka. Pleasure to be here. I want to start by giving you a story. 4 years ago in Delhi, there was a conference organized by UKRI to assess the progress made of poverty studies in the last 40 years. These studies were entirely funded by UKRI and related British UK funding agencies. And I was invited to attend, so I looked at the people who were presenting, and I discovered that all project directors of these research studies were eminent scholars based in UK, and they were studying poverty in South Asia, Southeast Asia, Sub-Saharan Africa, Caribbean, and around the world. The only question I asked them was, has any one of you been studying poverty in Liverpool or Birmingham, where just a few weeks before the conference, there were riots? The problem with internationalization is, and this has been brought out by your own experience, Dr. Venkatramani, that the global funding mechanism for such internationalization are the same: Erasmus, UKRI, and Fulbright. And therefore, all our students are thinking that best of experience comes from going to Europe, North America, and that's about it. I think that just because money is available, we should go and study in those contexts. Or should we not go to Bangladesh, Cambodia, Indonesia, Korea, even, or go to Sub-Saharan Africa? There is body of wisdom. I'm delighted that we have one Argentinian student here. Welcome. But as a country, we have no idea about Latin America just because they don't speak English, or just because they were not part of the colonial enterprise of UK. They were part of Spanish colonial enterprise and Portuguese colonial enterprise. So if internationalization of higher education for our students and faculty means one-way visit to Europe and North America, I would like more pandemics to happen every year so that there is no travel opportunity available to those places and people can learn from other countries. This is particularly important because if you look at who are the international students who Government of India scholarship and even your prestigious university Symbiosis brings, they are students who are coming from Global South. Now, the problem of knowledge, research, and careers is all intermixed in this internationalization. So the curriculum and pedagogy has to be such that we learn from diverse parts of the world and their wisdom. Before the European onset of current form of university system 550 years ago, which by the way coincided with the colonial enterprise, before that, the largest universities were of the Islamic world. They were in Cairo and they were in Marrakesh. They were not in North Europe and North America or Europe at that time. North America didn't exist at that time. Our own institutions, So I feel that, because internationalization has been hooked to, on the one hand, funding opportunities and on the other hand, to our students looking for, our faculty looking for collaboration, students looking for opportunities, go for higher studies, masters and PhDs. This one-way traffic with a narrow pathway to Europe and North America needs to be questioned. And it has nothing to do with knowledge not being available there. Yes, there is. I have also studied there. Many of my friends and colleagues are, but there is also knowledge available in that context. And if we truly want to build Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, then those of us who proclaim it must bring in our Vasudhaiva those kutums which are not able to finance or not able to use the language that we are good at. So that is my appeal to you all. We can have a longer conversation on people's knowledge and participatory research. Time does not permit that right now. But I really want to raise this debate that internationalization of higher education. When I go to Canadian or American universities or European British universities, for them, internationalization of higher education has been primarily recruiting students from other countries. And that's not what it is. You have to learn from others if you want to. Priyanka said, diversity, learn. Professor Majumdar himself has been saying, well, there's one hell of a lot of diversity in Africa and Southeast Asia, and we can learn greatly from that. So let me stop here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Rajesh Tandon. God forbid, let there be no more pandemics. But let us, out of the learnings, I'm sure we will definitely be able to reach out to more regions, more countries, and learn from the wisdom. Dr. Tandon, will you be, you had mentioned about your time constraint. Will you be here for the second round, or can I ask the second question now itself? So basically, the second question is related to the first observations that you made. We completely agree that every region has its own knowledge systems, and there's a lot to learn from the local wisdom. But then, do we have to take this, take it as two conflicting constructs, or can we not draw from all the wisdom of all regions, and not necessarily look at it as this or that? Can we think of integrating both? Will that be a good biomedium?
No. I'm not saying that this is better than that. I'm just saying that we don't know anything other than Europe and North America in this exchange.
Okay.
I haven't heard of any academic exchange between India and Indonesia, for example. I haven't heard any academic exchange south-south between India and Brazil. I haven't heard any academic exchange, whether students or faculty or both, with Cameroon or with Nigeria, even though Nigeria is...
I'm sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to tell you that yesterday we had all these discussions where we are collaborating with different regions, all the regions that you're talking about, and we really do want to connect with those universities and have exchange programs even with them. So completely take your point. Thank you.
No, so only point I want to make is that we need to, now that you refer to national education policy, you refer to, institutions like Symbiosis are pioneers in this, with the vision that Professor Majumdar and Dr. Vidya have carried forward. I think institutions like Symbiosis in India should mobilize resources, because it is a question of resources. The dominant ideas of our times are ideas of the dominant classes. Let us not forget that. Those who have money to fund research determine its agenda. Let's not be naive. Political economy of exchanges, international, are hooked to resource availability. So if national education policy is talking about Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, if, as Priyanka said, we have discussed global citizenship framework, let institutions like Symbiosis come forward and say, let's find resources, let's go to some CSR and corporate philanthropists and say, please give us resources to build robust exchange of students and faculty between India and Africa, India and Southeast Asia. And that, to my mind, is the challenge. The challenge is not that we don't know them, we know them, but we don't have the resources that we deploy to make this as a sustainable, robust engagement? That is the question. Why African students come to Symbiosis is because Government of India has encouraged that through its program in the past. And this needs to be done horizontally more and more with research and a student exchange program. That is the point I'm making. There is no contradiction. We should go to Europe and North America, but we should not go only to Europe.
But thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Tandon. We really look forward to continuing this conversation later. Thank you. I will now turn to our students. Anirudh, you are now studying in Tallinn University, Estonia, as a beneficiary of the Erasmus program. Please talk us through how you got this opportunity and the experiences that you will cherish, both in and outside the classroom, that is academic, social, cultural, all of that.
Thank you so much for having me here. Just for like an introduction as to what Erasmus program is basically the European Region Action Scheme for the mobility of university students. And this opportunity was mainly given to me by my university, who had a collaboration with Tallinn University, my department, since I'm studying Manipali, MA in European Studies. So I had this opportunity to actually they had a collaboration department and institutionally. So I got an opportunity in that manner. And when it comes to the academic experiences, it has been a pleasant experience for sure. And it's been a new learning. Almost every day you learn something new, and it's been an exciting journey so far. Like a few things which I could observe when it comes to internationalization of higher education, which is quite essential since I'm studying education, and being a beneficiary of internationalization of higher education is something really interesting. One thing which I wanted to mention is the inclusiveness, the idea of inclusiveness in a classroom by the teachers, students, and even the administrators was really welcoming, I would say, when it comes to the Erasmus programs. And also they were the way they appreciate diversity within the classroom, the kind of discussions we've had, and trying to, for all of us to have an inclusive environment. So we have since Tallinn University is kind of an international university, so there are a lot of international students here. And it's really interesting to interact with people from different parts of the world, not only from people from Estonia itself. And when it comes to academic learning, so the pedagogy, which you can say that there is quite an emphasis on student-centered learning. So there's a lot of emphasis on how the material is being given to students, and not exactly kind of a spoon feeding as such, but then they'll probably recommend you a few readings, and it's more related to discussion and how we see particular situations. So we have given scenarios where we discuss in the classes, and it's more practice-based, I would say, when it comes to the learning aspect. There has also been a class wherein it's called, instead of pedagogy, they used kind of a concept of andragogy, wherein there are like groups of people wherein we were together and we used to discuss about the course, and then we progressed about it. So it was really interesting to actually be involved in this particular thing, which I was not really used to before. But slowly I picked it up, and then I really had a wonderful time with that. And when it comes to another emphasis of academic experience would be is that the emphasis over here with the education technology. So Estonia is one of the countries which is leading when it comes to education innovation, and it is really interesting for me to how much importance they give when it comes to education and technology, and I wish to bring it back someday in one form or the other to India. Other than the academic experience, it has been a wonderful cultural exchange, just talking to people, understanding, for me, introducing about India and the diversity, language, cultures, and also learning from other parts of the world. So not just Europe, but also different parts of the world have also come in through different programs. So it's a really interesting way to learn the person and even the cultures. And it was also interesting that there's a lot of this inclusiveness and these student activities, which are not kind of organized by the Erasmus Student Network. So Erasmus Student Network is one of the largest student network, I would say, in Europe, and they have quite a huge network, and it's a really active platforms in different parts of universities, wherein they organize events, making sure that people are more welcomed, people get to make new friends, and also experience the culture and the traditions of the particular city or the country which you are in. So
it would be interesting to know a little more about the technology, the education technology that you were talking about, which you found very unique. Maybe when we have the second round, we'll discuss about that. Thank you so much. Thank you, Anil. I now move on to Aisha. You have been a beneficiary of the UK-India Education and Research Initiative, the UKRI, virtual exchange between psychology students at SSLA and Bournemouth University, UK. Please share your experiences. With respect to your to this program, but what I would really like to know is what could have changed if you had to be there in person rather than have it virtual? And in what aspects did you think that it did not matter whether it was virtual or physical? So, Aisha, we'd like to hear your views on this.
Good evening. I'm Aisha John. I'm a fourth-year student at Symbiosis School for Liberal Arts. Before I begin, I'd like to say that it's an honor to be here today and to be as a part of the UKRI exchange between SSLA Pune and Bournemouth University, UK. What I'd like to put across at this juncture is that I have never actually studied abroad or been a part of a semester exchange program in a foreign nation physically. But in my undergraduate experience at SSLA, I have benefited from numerous international collaborations in various forms that my university has been a part of. And ma'am, as you aptly asked, I often wondered if it would have been different because we'd initially planned for 10 psychology students from Bournemouth to come to SSLA and vice versa. So the way I engaged with it was in my capacity as president of the SSLA Psychological Association. So it was mostly the facilitation. But what was most interesting was that our point of contact and the head of this project from Bournemouth University was actually a woman named Dr. Shanti Shankar. So she was from India, and it was just lovely to have her be teaching in the UK and being a bridge in herself to be able to connect two cultures, to be able to talk about her experiences studying in India but applying her skills. So, as part of the UKRI exchange activities, we had a couple of different initiatives that were put forward. One of them was actually the UNESCO Story Circles, wherein we were all given different themes, varying themes, the 14 of us from India and the 10 of us from the UK, the 10 of them from the UK. And we would basically share our experiences based on, the cultural distinctiveness of our lives, our lived realities, and how we would reflect on that. But more importantly, we were also able to see how the same discipline, one that we believe is global and universal, was engaged with in so many different ways based on the culture we came from. At this point, I think it's important to realize that at the core of a liberal arts program is our interdisciplinary approach to every subject. So we want to see things from more than one perspective, from intersectional and intertwining perspectives. And of course, this is achieved in more ways than just curriculum design and the convergence of various subjects. It's careful pedagogical methods, it's the provision of good and diverse resources, the incorporation of open discussions. And I believe that at its crux, this is also what the internationalization of higher education seeks to and manages to achieve. So, an interesting activity that seemed like it was seemingly simple, but we had a lot to take away from, is that students from the UK and students from India were made to watch one movie surrounding psychology from both sides. So the UK students watched Dear Zindagi, and we watched A Beautiful Mind. And we spoke about what were the things that we take for granted as something that's normal, something that's a part of our daily life, but that was eye-opening to them. And as students of psychology, we also saw that it was so strange for a lot of them to see the cultural barriers that came in the applications of psychological methods both ways around, and more importantly, it was also interesting to see how the kind of internships they had, the kind of programs that they'd had, the kind of takeaways that they'd had from their colleges was so different from us, but also so alike. So in our differences and in our commonalities, I would believe is where we made the most of our headway. I don't think it would have been different if we were there together physically, of course, other than the fact that we'd be able to experience the culture physically and enjoy some of those experiences, as Anirudh had mentioned, in person, which I'm sure was, it's not something that, it's invaluable. But I think the most beautiful part of it being a virtual exchange is me being able to benefit from this program that would otherwise have not been possible for me. and also, more importantly, bringing to the limelight, this is along the lines of what Dr. Tandon had spoken about, which is that very often we think that only we have to learn from the existing dominant culture, whether it's the Western culture or what is pervasive in global discourse. But you also see what you're able to bring to the table, what you're able to contribute. And I think that was one of the most beautiful aspects of the UKRE exchange. And beyond this, I would just quickly like to mention that it goes beyond virtual exchanges as well. It's also the opportunities that we have, such as this, which is international conferences in conversation with so many esteemed guests from around the world, so many students, so many teachers, each with their own perspective. And similarly, we had we had a collaboration with Bournemouth University, UK, and DePaul University, Chicago, where we spoke about a cross-cultural dialogue on the changing nature of psychology in the pandemic. So we called it a Freudian slip. And it was so interesting to see how students like myself, who engage with the discipline on a daily basis, had around the world changed, and at the same period of time, changed the way and the manner in which we were engaging with our discipline. So we found that the way psychology was being applied, the challenges posed for the discipline in itself would be different, not only like in a culture specific way, but also in a domain specific way. And those are skills that we'd have to equip ourselves with, and we probably weren't prepared to before.
Thank you so much, Aisha. Listening to you, it was so heartening because your experience seems to have ticked all those, objectives that anyone would have wanted to achieve. Any two universities would have wanted to achieve while they actually got into a collaboration. And another heartening point that you made is it really doesn't matter. I thought you might say that I would have loved to be there in person, but you actually said that no, it didn't matter too much, and you benefited just as much. And that's an important takeaway because given all those the resource crunch that you're talking about, given the inability to travel so much, I think going forward, this is going to be the way in which most of internationalization will be happening. Thank you so much, Aisha. I'll come back to you next round. Kiara, now we are very, very eager to hear you speak of your experiences. Also share, how do you think you'll be able to share your learnings with your friends when you return to your university and in your own way contribute to internationalization of higher education at your home university?
Greetings to you all. Thanks for the invitation.
Yes.
Will you share the presentation that I... Okay, great. Yeah, that would be perfect.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks to all. I would like to introduce myself also with this presentation. I'm an advanced student in engineering in natural renewable resources at National University of Cuyo, which is located in Mendoza, Argentina. I would like to talk a little bit about my academic experience. I was an exchange student these past few months in the University of Arkansas, which is located in North America, thanks to a Fulbright scholarship, which was fully funded. So I would like to thank that also. Economy and energetic transition in sewage treatment in Mendoza, which is nowadays a big issue because we are facing as a province water crisis. So it is really important to fund these kind of projects. Also, I'm a representative student in the Engineering and Natural Renewable Resources Council in a subcommission of insertion in the labor environment, which is really important because what I can share with the rest of the group is about the opportunities that we have as future engineers in the abroad. Also, I was a research intern in the improvement of the Andean potato crop in collaboration with the genetics department, which is also really important because we take into account this important crop, the Andean potatoes, which is known as the treasure of South America. Also, I'm a volunteer at the Argentina Association of Students of Industrial Engineer, as the environmental management coordinator, which is also something really important because we collaborate with other students from different areas. And it is really important to communicate with them for sharing and for giving them our perspective in the environmental dimension. And finally, I was a volunteer in the Economic, Environmental, and Social Advisory Council in the Commission of Water and Sanitation in the place where I live, in representation of my university, in which I work with governors and also with other professionals, researchers, and more fields. So studying abroad gave me a lot of experiences and new experiences and also new skills. Some of the things I learned there in my short instance in the United States was that about improving my abilities of communication in a different language, which is always a challenge for us as students. It was really enrichful for me. Also getting to know other cultures. As a student in natural resources, diversity is a word that is really meaningful for us, not just biodiversity, but also cultural and getting to know other people. And diversity in all its dimension is really important for us because that's the way that we can commit ourselves and getting to know other perspectives for giving a solution to an outcome, and also for other global issues such as climate change. Also, gaining adaptability and problem-solving skills was something really important to us because we were alone there. We were just a group of 10 Argentinian students. We didn't know each other before traveling, and also we didn't know the American culture, which is quite different from Argentina. So it was quite a challenge. Finally, identifying opportunities for future alliances of collaboration and expanding our vision about future educational opportunities that sometimes when you don't travel abroad or you don't exactly know the opportunities that you have there or in the field that you're involved in is really important. So it was quite enrichful. Great. Finally, which are the future challenges that I think that at least Argentinian universities have, and some of the suggestions that are, in my opinion, really important to take into account is about increasing awareness of the possibilities available. Sometimes the students really want or are really interested in these kind of opportunities, but the thing is that they do not know them. I didn't know this kind of scholarship until some person told me about it and I decided to apply. Greater equity in opportunities for studying abroad. In contrast with what Professor was recently saying, here students are really intended to travel abroad and to continue their studies, but sometimes financial issues is a limitation for us. So that is something that has to be taken into account. More spaces for interaction between past exchange students and future candidates. It is really important to take this into account because this is the way that you encourage to others to expand their education. Until they do not know people who have experienced that recently or in the past, they do not want to get maybe or they so enrichful. Greater accompaniment in the application process. This is really important. Sometimes you just do not know where to start and it's something frustrating and a lot of people just leave it behind because they do not know where to start. And finally, development of new exchange programs with other countries as well, which is a really important point to take into account. So thanks for your attention. And these are some of the friends I made there in America. The one that it's there, I can share. I showed you pictures with my friend from Spain and from Saudi Arabia, from Myanmar, also from Britain and from different parts of the world. So thank you.
Thank you, Kiara. Looks like you've made some very good friends for life. The challenges, the very fact that you identified challenges would mean that you would now take it forward and take it upon yourself to be able to disseminate this information for for other students in your university. And I think you've made a very valid point that we should also look at new opportunities, new universities to have such exchange programs, which is something that resonates with what Dr. Rajesh Tandon had also mentioned. Thank you so much, Kiara. We'll come back to you for the next round.
Thank you.
I now move on to Dr. Madhu Chitkara. Ma'am, you are the Pro-Chancellor of the Chitkara University, and as a university leader, we'd like to understand from you how, with the NEP's new and renewed focus on internationalization of higher education, how has Chitkara University, responded to that? In terms of mobility, collaborations for research or academic programs. How has your university responded to it? Are you giving priority to any one aspect, or we'd like to hear your views?
Thank you, Professor. I think well said by all my students there. All the three told about their experience with the international universities and how that immersion program helped them out to have some of the skills which they got it from other collaborations. So in our case, in Chitkara University, I will give you one example. It's a case study, and it was appreciated by everybody. And it is actually is a part of NEP also, which we were doing it for the last 10 years. So what actually is a case study that it's very difficult for our Indian students to go abroad and get some type of coordination with the professors there, or going to those universities because of the pressure that they cannot pay that fees. So in return, what we did that, since we have a collaboration with 200 plus international universities across the globe, so we organized Global Week for our students, and it's a regular feature for the last 2 years because of the pandemic. It also went very well in a virtual mode, but we organized those Global Weeks for our students in our campus, where the faculty from all the international partners visit our university. Actually, they visit our university, they stay here for 1 week, and they take one module. It's not only one program, it is across our programs. We have all the 14 schools, and they are coming for all the schools. So university faculty becomes the faculty buddy for the foreign faculties, and then they teach our students across the university. Now, what we have noticed and what was the outcome, it was that there was a great platform which we gave it to our students, and the faculty was involved with them. There was an engagement, and there was a trust between the two. And in our 12th Global Week, which happened into the pandemic, it was on a virtual mode. And result was that our students have started doing the research with those faculty members, and there are some joint research projects. There are some patents done by our faculty and with the global faculty. So one example is that in our business school, we have a Global Business Week where faculty members from University of Osnabrück came to our campus. There was a change management and there was module where the students, 30 students from University of Osnabrück came to our campus along with the 2 faculty members, and our faculty members and the students were part of it. So they worked together, and there was a result, there was a research paper on it. So and accordingly, those type of collaborations are giving so many patents, so many research papers, and that mobility of our students, because physically it was not possible for them to go abroad, as well said by one of the students. They said that sometimes when we went there, the experience was good, but it was not possible for them to stay back. But if it is a regular feature, and NEP is saying that internationalization of education in our university is a very important factor which we have to follow. So I think in that way, their immersion with our programs have given us so much of great benefit to our students as well as to our faculty members. So they were able to get the feel of internationalization sitting in their own university. So I think this was outcome of that, and it's a part of NEP also.
Yeah, that's a good practice to follow. What I would also like to understand is you spoke about these international faculty coming to your university. Now maybe virtually, but earlier they used to come.
Yes, physically.
So did the international faculty and your faculty actually sit and co-create programs, or was it that they came and taught, and so they had a module that they taught and went, or did the faculty come together to co-create and co-teach the program?
Yes, so it was a very good question asked by you, Professor. I was just thinking that you will ask this, that they co-created the curriculum when they were talking about the content of that particular module. And the best part was that it was evaluated by both the main professor from the international university and the buddy from our university. So they both of them sat together. They talked about, and it took them at least 2 months to talk about that what type of curriculum or what type of content is to be taken during this module, and it should give the benefit to our students and the faculty also. And the resultant was so good that they came up with some of the research papers where one student from that particular class, the one faculty member, those who were doing the role of buddy for that international professor and the international professor, they came up with a great idea where one paper, one research paper of that international level came up, and that was distributed amongst all the students, and it was their case study only. So we have came up with a publication where their ideas, their results came up, and they came up with a Center of Excellence also, which was the product of their collaboration. And I think you were talking about the Erasmus, ma'am, you were part of it. Yeah. So we also came up with that Erasmus Plus projects where the Symbiosis were also part of it. So that was a result of these collaboration where we were part of the University of Latvia, and then one was Symbiosis, one was us, and one was the University of Pondicherry. So that was the result of when we were collaborating with each other and they were giving us the results.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Dr. Chitkara. I will now start with the second round with Kiara. So this question can be answered by any of the students. We're just curious to know. See, when you set out for these exchange programs, you all would have had certain expectations in your mind. So whether it was a UKV program or the Erasmus or the Fulbright, you all went with certain expectations. But somewhere during the program, did you ever feel that, okay, I wanted that, but that's not a priority anymore. That's actually quite trivial. Something else that I did not really want, I did not expect is actually more important and more has gained priority. Any such revelation that you all want to share with us?
Honestly, I think because it was a virtual exchange, I didn't go into it with a lot of expectations of, rather there's nothing specific with which I entered into the same. I do think that there were a variety of topics that were covered, and in fact, it went a little bit beyond my expectations because small activities in the UNESCO story circles was definitely eye-opening. But also, there was this one particular module that stood out specifically, which was on counseling practices, which was taken by Dr. Gayatri Kotbagi and Dr. Shanti Shankar from SSLA and Bournemouth, respectively. And I think one thing that we definitely tend to overlook, not because it's trivial, but because we definitely think that we can work beyond it, is the fact that so often the way in which we can engage with a discipline is both limited and enhanced by the culture that we come from and the ways in which this discussion is carried forward in our culture. So I do believe that while it is noble on our part for wanting to definitely integrate cultures and to talk about where we have our commonalities and where we have our differences. It's also very important to realize that in a country as diverse as India, not just in terms of, say, I don't know, our linguistics or our religious diversity, but in terms of class and caste and the different regions in which people live with, something such as mental health must be tackled very, very, very precariously that maybe the UK would not have to tackle with in the same way. And they had spoken about an initiative they're taking forward called Sheetal Astitva, which was so amazing, and it was actually something that I was very glad that we brought to the forefront. So even though this was initially something that I thought that we could have covered more, I do think that through by bringing this initiative to the forefront, we're also sorry, before that I must let you know what the initiative is about. So basically, Sheetal Astitva is about making mental health care more accessible to those living not in urban areas, more towards the rural regions, and basically empowering women and enhancing their skills to deal with mental health challenges that might come their way. And a very important point that was brought up was the fact that very often we don't have it within our language itself to describe an experience such as, say, anxiety. We might describe the physical symptoms of it, but we don't actually go on to tackle it head on unless we have particular linguistics that can cover it. So I think anything that we lack in terms of actually touching upon the diversity that various countries have with them, we can bring forward by inculcating students in activities like this, in letting them know that there are such opportunities, there are NGOs that are working towards such causes, and that on the grassroots, the reality is very different from like the dominant conversation and the dominant discourse that prevails, not just in India, but the picture that we put forward. So definitely focus on that a little bit more would change the way we learn and benefit from such programs.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Aisha. I will now move on to Aniruddha. Would you want to answer the same question, but maybe in the context of the war that happened and the support systems that you built for yourself? What experiences taught you?
Yes, absolutely. I would like to add a couple of things for sure. To answer the first question as to what was expected and what did not happen. So I think one of my first interactions or experiences was the number of classes which we had. A number of hours we spend in a classroom is much lesser when you compare to India, and I think that gives a kind of a lot of freedom for students to actually have a self-learning emphasis, and also give them provide an opportunities to work as well as study at the same time. So I think that was one of the observations wherein I found like my friends were actually working when they were not in the class, whereas so they also gain experience while they are studying at the same time. And then we don't have, like in India, we have this problem that we have a lot of time which is spent in the class, and we don't have exactly the time which we can dedicate to work after that. And of course, another major learning was how people become united in the times of trouble. With the unfolding of the Ukrainian situation and Estonia being a border of Russia, the role of universities and even the country had completely changed. And they quickly adapted to this, wherein the universities welcomed the students to actually continue their studies whose studies were interrupted because of the war. So we have a lot of Ukrainian students now in our university, and they've made sure that they are well accommodated. And students also volunteered, and it was an honor to be also a part of and volunteering to help the Ukrainian students and families to actually for their food, shelter, and even the basic necessities in that sense. And a few students actually volunteered to even share their living space with the Ukrainian students. So I think that unity among people when in the troubled times is something which I really learned, and it's been really enriching.
Yeah, and it must have given you a sense of, confidence that you know how to handle such situations. They're life skills that you actually acquire. Thank you so much, Aniruddha. Kiara, do you want to share anything about this now? Do you have anything else to share with us in the context of the question that I asked?
Yes, I would say that before traveling, I thought, or my expectations were that I was going to learn more academic content. But actually, when I came back to my country, I realized that I had learned more about soft skills. about the ones that I was telling you before, about adaptability and getting involved with other cultures, and flexibility, and finding solutions to problems, and facing language challenges. So that was one of the expectations that weren't actually the way I expected.
But you were happy with what happened, right? So you're not too disappointed about not having that much academic.
No, of course not.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Kiara. I will now request Professor Priyanka Upadhyay. Can you please share with us your experiences regarding internationalization of higher education, and how how one can nurture student and institutional relationships? You have such rich experience, and we've come to the end of this discussion, and so we'd like you to talk about that and sum it up for us.
I think there is, thank you so much for it. It's been, I was listening to especially the very young participants very intently, and there is no one size fit all thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll tell you that in Varanasi or Banaras, a lot of students from North America and other parts, Latin America and other places, they come here to get a flavor of the culture. And I think somewhere we should also encourage the extra university activities as much. I mean, a lot of these students, and numbering in 100 now over 40 years, I know they have made lifelong connections with the city, with the culture, with the music. So this is one aspect that keeps on inspiring me. In fact, and it's strange, I mean, the present head, or I don't know, he's left now, Adam Grotsky, was a cultural exchange student at Fulbright. I'm talking about Fulbright Commission at Banaras Hindu University, and then we reconnect. So it's a very lively thing. One thing that I would very strongly recommend is to develop a very workable alumni kind of situation, wherein students come and spend time with you. We should have a framework, a stronger framework, to keep connected with them, because they are our best ambassadors. When they return to their countries, they are the ones who encourage other students, and they are the ones actually who advise us. And I think to that extent, this evaluation part is whether we are able to do it with our own students or not. But with the students coming from the international students, we should have a very, we should insist on evaluating us, what facilities are lacking, what do they want to do. That will enrich and empower our institutions to host these students much better. So there is a lot to share, a lot to learn. We are ending this year with this UNESCO's decade of rapprochement of culture. And I think one of the very strong component of this decade, UN decade for rapprochement of culture, is through the young minds, young people. They are the ones who would do away with the prejudices that the different generations have done. So thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of this so lively discussion, and hope to carry on this discussion, conversation in future as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Professor Upadhyay. Actually, when you spoke about alumni, I'd like to borrow our Chancellor's words. He always calls our alumni our goodwill ambassadors. So, yes, we agree with you, and we look forward to continuing this conversation on other platforms also. Thank you so much. With this, we come to the end of this panel discussion. I thank you all. I thank all the panelists for this wonderful session, and hand over the forum to Dr. Ruchi for the Q&A and the summing up. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Bhama. I think Dr. Upadhyay called the session very lively, and the last session of the conference to be so lively. I think that's like such a great emotion to end the conference on. But Dr. Bhama, thank you for so seamlessly, integrating one session in one talk to the other, and thank you for making it so interactive. I think the entire audience would agree with it, and I think I would say that it was a very inspiring session in many ways, because personal narratives are so powerful that you are able to think about a subject an issue beyond the larger, dimensions of policy and how it gets executed and everything, because you think that actually it changes lives. It matters to people at individual levels, at the level of community, and the kind of communities and groups it's able to then facilitate. So thank you, Dr. Bhama. I would like to take this opportunity to thank you for anchoring this extremely lively discussion. To Dr. Tandon, who left the session early because of some other work, I think what he brought in was an extremely critical thought process to the entire discussion, about the whole concept of decolonializing the internationalization of higher education conversation and what it means. But in addition to that, I think Dr. Priyanka Upadhyay, I thought he really inspired me with how he was looking at this whole idea of students who come to our universities from other countries, and students who go from our country to other universities. I think in a lot of ways they are such a captive group, and they have come in for that experience. And I think that is where the moral responsibility of creating that very holistic experience for them falls on us who call ourselves nurturers and teachers, and the whole collaboration therefore becomes very significant. I think Dr. Chitkara gave us a very, very pragmatic, practical sort of an overview of the direct experiences that they had in terms of working with international universities, both with faculty and students. And I think those examples are always extremely important as to how it works on the ground. I think this session belongs to Aisha, Kiara, and Anirudh in so many ways, because it is them, their motivation, the energy, the commitment, and the focus they bring to these experiences that make them worth what they were, put in place for. And I think for that conversation, Anirudh, Kiara, and Aisha, I think thank you so much for being so honest and candid. And we don't have a lot of questions from the audience, because I think this is not an opportunity to ask you questions. I think this was an opportunity for all of us to engage with you. And we can set. I always tell this to a lot of colleagues that we have these ideas of student interest in our heart. We sincerely work towards it, but at the end of it, is the stakeholder, the student, as much a part of it? And the student thinks that it is for their benefit or not. I think that's the conversation we need to have. And I think Symbiosis in that sense is this amazing environment. It stands true to its name, Symbiosis, always, where every year these panels are created where teachers and students come together, to have those very open conversations. I hope the next year, and if Dr. Vidya and Professor Anita are all here, if we kind of can have this conversation somewhere sitting here in our amphitheater and call it a fireside chat, I think it'll just be amazing to have you all together and then kind of fire up this inspiring conversation. But on that note, I thank Dr. Vidya, Dr. Gupte, Dr. Anita, for giving me this opportunity to just be a part of this discussion in more organic ways rather than keeping my camera switched off. I am very, very grateful to Dr. Bhama for creating such an environment for such a lively discussion. Thank you to Dr. Madhu Chitkara, Dr. Upadhyay, Dr. Tandon, Aisha, Kiara, and Anirudh for being such active participants in this session, and to all these nice, lovely people in the audience who were engaging on the chat box. And you all have a great day. Anita, over to you. Thank you.
So Dr. Pani is our go-to research expert at AIU, and along with the president and Dr. Pankaj, he works very actively with us. I'm very happy that on behalf of AIU, he is here. Dr. Pani, if you could say a few words to all our participants. Dr. Pani has been traveling for work and therefore has been coming in and off through the sessions, and he's been catching up with it and with me. As you know, Dr. Pani, 47 countries have been represented at this, and all the states of India. So all these participants have been here. So please, over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Anita, and my other participants and the panelists. It is indeed a pleasure and a wonderful opportunity to be a speaker to address the gathering here right now. In fact, as I understand, let me congratulate Symbiosis International University for carving a niche for itself. In fact, this is probably the 5th or 6th international conference we are organizing together jointly with AIU and Symbiosis. And all those other conferences have been very, very enriching, very, very effective. And this year theme, especially the inter-regional cooperation, this is extremely important in view of the fact that, see, I know lots of things have been transpired in the last 3 days of conference. Many experts have spoken nitty-gritty of the things and all the dimensions must have been covered. I do not want to repeat many of the things, but only I have a few points to share with the things. See, inter-regional cooperation now is fundamental to achieve the objective and mission of this internationalization of higher education. Reason being, let me tell you, some of our old universities, those who have already tried to catch up with the trend of internationalization, they are doing a little bit well. But in case of the newly established institutions, they are really having a little bit of problems because they do not have understanding, they do not have international you can say infrastructure and the curriculum and everything. So they find it easy to go first inter-regional cooperation, and that will enhance their in-house you can say capacity building for going into the full-fledged internationalization of higher education. So the theme chosen for the conference deliberation, I really appreciate and admire. This is a good one. We have been doing on several themes. Probably last year we did it on internationalization in-house and some other themes. We have done it marvelously. And on this theme particularly, my stake is only the theme. The thing is that inter-regional cooperation is extremely important before going for the full-fledged international, because in inter-regional cooperation and networking, we find many similarities so far as educational trends and priorities are concerned. So therefore, speaking on this occasion, I think many experts have already transpired. They have given very good ideas to promote the inter-regional cooperation, and I have no much stake on this aspect. But so far as the research is concerned, especially the teaching, and if we segregate the teaching learning activities and the research and networking collaboration, all other activities, I think in all the mode, in all the way, inter-regional cooperation is extremely important. And given the time we are passing through right now, we are passing through a very, very opportune time, because the National Education Policy 2020 has already given a pointed reference towards the international cooperation and internationalization, everything. And the policy has envisioned inviting 100 top universities in the world to India and sending our top 100 universities to there. And to begin with, nothing more can be more effective than the inter-regional cooperation and inter-regional networking and inter-regional working together, because we share many things that are common. So this point, making this point only, I thank Dr. Anita, Madam Dr. Vidya, and all our other panelists for giving this nice opportunity to be here and to share a little bit of ideas with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Pani. As always, you are a great support for us. Let me quickly just wrap up this year's IIT. We began with the roundtable, learnings from associations and networks that were incredibly important, especially for all of us in India, as AIU is set to launch a very own international network for internationalization of higher education.
Madam Dr. Anita, yes. Madam Dr. Anita, just permit me 1 second more.
Yes, sir.
Yes. I think Dr. Pankaj, Dr. Mittal, our Secretary General must have already said, and you know, Dr. Anita and Dr. Vidya Madam, they have contributed much in establishing INNI, Indian Network for Internationalization of Higher Education. That is one of the pioneering initiatives taken by AIU, and with the help of Madam Anita, Madam Dr. Vidya, and Dr. Raghu. There are so many people, those who are on board. They have been marvelously contributing to establish INNI. INNI, the international network, it is going in the similar way, the way other networks are functioning all over the world. And we have picked up 10, 15 in our glossary. And similar way, this INNI network is going to first establish its credibility by enhancing the cooperation at the regional level. And thereafter, we can go beyond the regional collaboration and everything. This is just a small piece of information. I believe Madam Dr. Pankaj and yes. Dr. Anita, all of you must have shared with our participants. Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Pankaj.
Thank you.
Day one yesterday saw excellent deliberations after our inaugural session on a range of themes, from the need for advancing South-South-North dialogues in higher education, interregional cooperation from an East-East and ASEAN perspective, and then rounding off with a very interesting conversation with the Right Honorable Joe Johnson on a number of topics relevant to India, Indian higher education, NEP. Of course, this depended upon and based upon his own experiences in India as well as in Asia. And then how can we learn from the UK and the changes that they are making in the higher education sector? Today, the second day began with an insightful discussion on knowledge diplomacy. And we realized that there is a difference between diplomacy and soft power. The second track had a very comprehensive talk by the Honorable Minister of State for External Affairs and Education, Dr. R.K. Ranjan Singh. We then focused on how to collaborate better with our neighbors, which we obviously must do. After the launch of the Symbiosis Center for India-Australia Studies, we then heard discussions related to opportunities in this area. IT always likes to conclude with very real student and faculty voices, as honestly speaking, they are the ones who actually live the realities in the ecosystem that we create for them. And we heard these experiences in the last session. Let me, on behalf of Dr. Vidya and Amruta and the entire team at IHE SCI, say thank you from the bottom of our hearts to all the 40 speakers who shared very generously of their experiences, their knowledge, their expertise, many of them joining in virtually at ungodly hours from across the globe. Many of these connects were possible through the good offices of our international and national partners. You have all given us much to consider and discuss in the days to come. We at Symbiosis, of course, are thankful to AIU for being a partner in our mission to support the internationalization of Indian campuses and the curricula, not just at Symbiosis institutes and campuses, but across the country. And this year, we thank Obrial Global and SEPC for their steadfast support. We are humbled by the response that we have got from all of you. From across the world, participants from 47 countries have joined in during these last 3 days, and almost all the states of India, faculty and staff who've joined in and participated well during this conference. It's your response that makes IHE a success, and we thank you for always supporting our IHE conferences. And right at the very end, let me say that the past 2.5 days have flown by seamlessly, literally seamlessly, for especially Amruta and myself. I think primarily because of this amazing team that we have here. I don't know how they do it, but they manage to smile at all times, at all hours, through all the work that comes their way. Let me just very briefly, with your, indulge me please, to thank them. Madhav in the office of the Pro-Chancellor, Vidya and the office of the Vice-Chancellor, Dr. Amit and his entire IT team, Shikha, Praful, Meetu, and Bhavna, and everyone who works at SP Road and at Lovelay campus, all my colleagues throughout Symbiosis, who I won't use the word bully on a formal platform, but they're just a phone away. And therefore, they've come in to help us, to do research, to do chairs, to be moderators, to support us in so many ways. And last but not the least, the entire SCI team. Let me mention specifically Nidhi, Mrunal, Akshay, Bhakti, Swati, Mansi, the entire team. So Amruta and I thank you all once again on behalf of the Chancellor, Professor Dr. S. Sundar, Pro-Chancellor, Dr. Vidya Yeravdekar, and the Vice-Chancellor, Dr. Rajni Gupte. Thank you so much for making these past 3 days extremely informational and insightful. And like I said, lots of food for thought on how we can look at the years to come and how we can look at internationalization of higher education and how we can begin in regions that we maybe have not been interacting and engaging with so well. We look forward to seeing you again next year. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend. For those who are celebrating Easter Sunday, have a wonderful Easter. For everyone else, probably a good day to relax a little bit after the last 2.5 days that we work. Thank you all so much. Extremely humbled by all your responses. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Madam Dr. Anita, and thanks everybody. It was really a wonderful experience to be here. Thank you so much.